All right. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
How you doing, brother?
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
I dig that countdown.
Yeah,
I dig that countdown.
it's the streaming service. So for our guests and those who are watching us, inshallah, I'd like for you to introduce yourself again.
Again, my name is Malik Muhammad. I am born and raised in Detroit, Michigan. I am and a graduate from the University of Cincinnati. I have a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in sociology, and I am currently a Ph.D. student in the Islamic University of Malaysia. My field of study, I switched from sociology to education. You could say education, or you could say Islamic education, because the study of education is being filtered through an Islamic lens. So it's education just from an Islamic perspective.
Alhamdulillah. So today, let's jump into our topic today. The discussion today is going to be about the identity crisis for the African American, in particular for here in this side of African American Muslims, but in general, the African American community. So can you give us a little bit of info, some of your wisdom, expertise on this topic?
On identity. Oh boy. You know, this issue of identity with primarily African Americans is a very complex and nuanced, layered topic, to deal with. It's not it's not a simple thing. It's not a, how do I want to put it? One or two conversations and we've uncovered and untucked everything that needs to be uncovered. It's very nuanced and it's very difficult to navigate. We have to remember that our identity has been, or who we are has been, an ongoing event. Who we are, how we view things, how we think, how we don't think, what's important, what's not important. All of these things are a result of our social engineering that began during slavery all the way up to now. It's funny that even today, I had a discussion with a few colleagues, and we were talking about how Blacks are consumers and not producers. And that's a part of our identity. We have been engineered to be consumers and not producers. In one of my classes that I taught at the college, I showed my students a video. Now, keep in mind, and you can Google this video. It's How to Sell to Negroes. And it was developed in 1954. 1954, they were already developing ways to make money off of us. But when we go back to identity, I feel personally, just based on what I've studied and the readings that I've done and things, conversations that I've had, the biggest issue that we have is the fact that we don't have a connection to a landmass other than America. Because if you look at any other demographic of people, they all have some type of connection to a motherland or a homeland. With that comes everything that culture entails. Culture is not a small thing. Culture weighs a lot. Culture develops identity. Culture develops who you are. It develops your community, your communal efficacy. Identity is paramount. It's who you are. And because we don't have a connection to an actual landmass that has a culture that we can claim as our own, we sort of are at the mercy of those who have the ability to drive the narration as far as who we are and who we are not. The image of us, how we are perceived, how we're seen, is not controlled by us. It's controlled by exogenous forces who have the ability to export an image of us. So even those who have the ability and the blessing of Allah to travel, to go different places, you still have to deal with, on some level, the nonsense that you just left in America, because they have now exported their idea of you or their socially engineered image of you overseas. I've been to countries before, and I'm talking about Asian countries. Do I rap? Do I play ball? Have I ever been to prison? Can I dance? I mean, I can dance, but all that other stuff I can't do. I've never been to prison. I've never, I'm not an athlete like that, But, all jokes aside, you have to ask yourself, where do they get that image of us? That's what we do. Like, that's what we're known for. We're not known for intellect. We're not known for academics. We're not known for inventing. We're not known for progressive thinking and God consciousness and we're not known for that globally. We're known for rapping and tapping, shucking and jiving. You know what I mean?
That's true.
And it goes back to, it's hard for us to counter that onslaught because we don't actually have a culture that is directly connected to a landmass that we know for a fact. This is where we're from. Africa's a big continent.
That's right.
And it's made up of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of different cultures, different tribes, different groups, different, so just to say, well, I'm from African descent. I mean, that's cool, but where? What's your culture? What's your connection? You know what I mean? And that's the biggest problem. I remember a time when I was in Singapore and it was Salatul, it was either Dhuhr or it was either Salatul Asr. Either way, I fell asleep after the prayer. I prayed and then I was laid on the floor and I fell asleep. And when I woke up, there was a large group of brothers sitting on the other side of the masjid. 50, 60 deep, something like that. It was quite a few of them. So I got up off the floor and I began to walk out of the masjid, and they gave salams and I gave salams, and then they started a conversation, and then, I engaged them, and come to find they were a Jamaat Tabligh. They were a Tablighi Jamaat. Now, keep in mind, we're in Southeast Asia. These Southeast Asians, even though they subscribed to that ideology that came from the subcontinent, Guess who they didn't look like? They looked like themselves. They still dressed as Southeast Asians. There were one or two, maybe three Africans sprinkled in the group. They dressed like Africans. They weren't dressed like Southeast Asians. They weren't dressed like Indo-Pacs. They were dressed like Africans. So everybody, although they subscribed to that ideology, they still maintained their own identity. If you look across America, when African Americans attach themselves to a group, a country, an ideology, they tend to begin to dress like them, talk like them, eat like them. And we have to ask ourselves, like brothers that subscribe to the Jamaat Tabligh ideology, African Americans. Now, let me ask you this. Have you ever seen them who are African American, that hung out with the Jamaat Tabligh and they traveled and they were with them? How did they dress?
They dress just like them and smell just like the Desi Muslims. Smell like them too, smell like curry and stuff.
I've seen it 1,000 times. And the thing is, I'm not knocking them for that. It's because I understand they don't have their own. Brothers that subscribe or follow the ulama of the Khaliji area, how do they dress?
Just like the sheikhs in the Khalij.
Red and white imama, the thobe. Like this thobe I have on right now. This thobe I have on right now is from Kuwait. And, I lived in Kuwait. We'll get into different dresses, later. And that's one of the beauties of this is one of the plus sides of the African-American situation with identity. But I'll get into that later. But the point is that those brothers who go to Medina University and they dress like the Saudis. They dress like the people in the Khalij. When I was in Egypt, and all the fitna jumped off in Yemen, right, with Damaj and the Houthiyun. Many of the students there fled to Egypt, right? You could point them out. You could point them out a mile away because they dressed as Yemenis.
That's right.
They dressed based on where they were at. African Americans, we don't have that. Again, we don't have that connection to a landmass, and some will say that we have our own culture here. In some aspects we do, but my question would be, the culture that we have, do you believe that it's socially engineered? The majority of it.
Majority is socially engineered. We are made peoples by the system, the white government.
Even if you take it to hip hop, because I grew up on hip hop, I loved me some hip hop back in the day.
All of us did.
Man, I used to break dance and everything. Boy, I was killing them. But hip hop back in the day, it's not like hip hop now.
That's right. Sure is not.
Hip hop back in the day had diversity, just like black folks are diverse. Brothers from the South are a little bit different from brothers from the North, who are different from brothers from the West, who are definitely different from brothers on the East Coast.
That's right.
Now, collectively, we do have a shared experience, a cultural, a historical experience that we all connect with, but we have different cultural slang words and things that we eat and, so on and so forth. But when hip hop was in its infancy, we controlled it. So we had that diversity. We had a consciousness that was emerging from hip hop, a black consciousness, right? You had all the different groups, all the different hip hop groups that spoke to black consciousness. And many of them, or some of them rather, even spoke to Islam, even though we know now that they didn't really understand the actual, the Quran and the Sunnah. But for many of us, that was our first interaction with Islam. Hearing the word Allah, hearing Islam, hearing the word Muslim was through hip hop, right? So hip hop in its infancy, some could say it was a positive movement, right? I do believe that the moment the powers that be saw this hip hop thing is galvanizing, this hip hop thing is stopping some of them from drinking and smoking, and they're telling each other to stop shooting each other and stop doing this and doing that. As soon as I think they understood that this is the route that hip hop was taking, they took control of it. And now we got dudes wearing dresses. We got hip hop artists wearing dresses. We got hip hop artists telling pop mollies and drink this and sleep with as many women as you can. And, you know, the women are, you know, so we don't even control hip hop anymore. We have, at some point, we have to self-define. We have to define our own agency. Now, you know, even when I did my master's degree, I sat in some of these classes and I was perplexed. I was like, I don't see how the problem can be fixed. I mean, it's so big and so it's like trying to fight Godzilla with a bow and arrow.
That's true.
You understand what I mean? Because you have to consider the damage that's been done has been over hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, right? Institutionally and systemically, right? Oppression and racism are a well-oiled machine that almost you don't have to work it. It's going to work itself.
That's right.
It's going to work itself. It's been in motion for so long, and it's been manipulated and tweaked to be applicable to the time and era that we're in. As you know, Michelle Alexander, she said in her book, The New Jim Crow, she talked about how racism doesn't lessen, it just changes to be adapted to the time and era that we're in, right? And she gave a chronological breakdown of from slavery to the black codes and black laws to, let me see, after that, Jim Crow, and then from Jim Crow to mass incarceration. That all of that is basically just racism, just morphing to fit the time that we're in. Now, again, back to identity. The image of black men, we're brutes, we're ignorant, we are hypersexualized, you know, we're not thinkers. The women are Jezebels, the women are hypersexualized, the women are sassy, they're mammies, they're, you know, all the things that we've seen in movies throughout the years. What happens is we internalize that, right? And it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
You know something, today you still see it. Like, I was reviewing Netflix show, new episode of Strange Thing. I think it's like season 4. So they have the little black girl in Strange Thing, season 4. And if you notice, the little black girl, she's very loud. She say things that's inappropriate for her age. She speaks, you know, it's the typical stereotype of black female. They put that in the black character, the female character. She's very loud. She's very rude. She doesn't have good social skills. She say things at the wrong time, right, in front of the wrong people, and she can't control her mouth and what she say, right? And I noticed, and I said to myself, why did they put this character of this young black girl, the character with this bad trait? Because the people who produce the show are white, and this is what they see, or this is what the media portray black women to be, the sign that a strong black or intelligent woman who can't control what she say or when she say it.
Everything just about that pertains to us as far as image, because we don't control our own image.
That's right.
On the grand scale, we don't. Individually, I can determine what I put on my Facebook page. But even you can't control. I take that back. You can't really control everything that you put on your Facebook page because you're having problems with them regulating you right now.
Yes, definitely.
So, we have limited control even over things that, should be an individual expression.
That's right.
We have limited, right?
But as you say that, hold that thought. As you say that about Facebook, I want to let the listeners and the followers of this video on this channel that, Facebook does prevent me from promoting videos. They said because I talk a lot about black issues that I'm a political party. But all those people who follow me on Facebook and like this talk and talks like this, can you please, every time you see these videos, click like and share them. That helps promote the videos. Without Facebook, Facebook definitely doesn't. It puts these videos far down in the feed. So if you click like and share, it helps promote this video. But continue.
Just about everything that I'm talking to you about right now is coming from a sociological perspective. When we look at the African-American Muslim, separate from the non-Muslim, if you remember a while back, I wrote a small piece on correlation and causation. Remember that long thing that I wrote that I sent you?
Yes, I read
correlation and causation. Okay. And normally the principle is correlation doesn't equate to causation. Okay, that's a basic principle. Correlate, just because something correlates doesn't mean that that's the cause of whatever the issue is. But in the issue of African American Muslims, I posit that our problems are a direct result of our history. We come into Islam as Muslims, or as, when we come into Islam, I think there's this false understanding that as soon as you take the Shahada, you are a new person. Now, we understand that your sins are forgiven and all of that, but you're the same cat that you were when you walked in, with the same problems and the same history and the same, illnesses, mental illnesses, the same sociological and emotional damage. You're the same person. Well, we bring that into the Ummah.
That's right.
We bring that into the Ummah. We need more mental health specialists and experts we need more blacks who have that expertise, who understand our history, who understand our challenges, because you can't fix us the same way you would fix a Hispanic person, or the same way you would fix a Caucasian person or an Asian person. We have a very unique history. We have a very unique history that, I will say this, no other people has the history like we have. No other people have dealt with what we've had to deal with. And I've made that statement before, and I've had people say, well, what about the indigenous people? What about the Indians? Their situation is still not as bad as ours. Why? Because regardless of everything they went through, they still maintained a culture. They still maintained a language. they still maintained who they were. Although they were oppressed, they were slaughtered, they were done dirty, but they still knew who they were. And they couldn't be controlled.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
That'd be great for the next question that I wanted to pose to you. What makes our Black communities different from other Muslim communities?
Our history. Our history is totally different. Therefore, our perspective, our interaction, our how we perceive things, everything is going to be, it's based on who you are. It's based on your experiences and things. So our community is definitely different. Like I said, you don't see, when the brothers come to this country from Saudi Arabia, they don't dress like they're from Nigeria.
They sure don't.
They don't dress like they're from Japan. Now, they may come here and wear Western clothes
to fit in,
but they still know who they are.
They sure
they
do.
Still speak their language. They still know what they want to eat and what they don't want to eat.
Matter of fact, I have a friend. I have a friend of mine. He's from Emirates, and he was wearing suit and tie. He was a refugee, political refugee. So one day he see me in the street in the Jalabia, and he said, "You can wear that here. No one's gonna bother you." I said, "Man, nobody's gonna bother you." Man, the next time I seen this guy had the gutra. He had his, he had everything. I said, "Nobody gonna bother you." He said, "Okay." He wore his gutra every day. But definitely, when it comes to our identity, or when it comes to the Muslim community, we definitely have two different concerns. For example, when I go to the other Muslim communities from different nationalities, and when I go to the Black community, they have two different concerns. And the immigrant Muslim community who've been here for a while, their concern is about getting more power, getting more money, things pertaining to the government or local government for their concerns, right? Their concern might be, hey, we want you to change the district zone, because now we live here and we're expanding to over here. How can you, ask politician, expand the zone or whatever, right? The zoning area. When I go to the African American Muslim community, their concern is very totally different. Police brutality, no jobs, no work, or why brothers can't take care of their family. Sometimes they don't even know why they have these issues. A lot of it's built into the social issues of Black Americans, but we definitely have two different concerns. I go to the Yemeni community. Their concern is more about how can they get more money for their business or expand their business. That's their whole concern.
Because we take Shahada doesn't mean that all of a sudden we're not Black, and we're not perceived as Black by the rest of the world. You know what I mean?
But our peoples do think, the African American Muslims do believe when they become Muslim that they're no longer Black and they don't have none of the Black social problems. They, Aki, when I came to Salafi Dawa back in the early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s, when they heard me listen to a certain imam who was Black conscious, they would tell me, "Oh man, are you a Black nationalist?" When they hear me talking about Black people's issues, they would say, "Oh, you're a Black nationalist." So that goes into the next question here. Why does Black African American Salafis in particular, not excluding them, shy away from addressing Black social issues in the U.S.? They shy away from it.
I think some of it is due to training. I've trained in martial arts for a long time, and one thing that one of my teachers impressed upon me is the way you train is the way you fight. We lack applicable Islam from the people who are teaching us. If you can't figure out how to use Islam, or how to use Islam to better your situation
or empower yourself,
it's not really doing you any good. It's going to become mechanical and routine and not have life if you don't know how to apply it to your reality. The Yemenis, the Saudis, the Asians, the Pakistan, they know how to apply it to their life. They're taught from a young age. It's a part of who they are. But for us, it's not. You know, and I think that's one of the reasons why some of the du'at maybe shy away, because they may not necessarily know how to apply it. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, I understand that perfectly.
I think there's also, they don't want to be viewed as that deviant. They don't want to be that mubtadi'a who's talking about race, because there is no racism in Islam.
In Islam. You know, that's one of the labels they threw at Shadid Muhammad. And I believe also they did throw that black nationalist term at Muhammad Munir, right? Because he made a statement before, I think, in the night shift program. But they threw it at Shadid Muhammad, Muhammad Munir, I believe, and other brothers who talk about black social issues that every black American, whether you Muslim or Christian, with all of us face. But in the Salafi community, only see this, the neo-Salafi community, SP, that if you talk about black social issues, white supremacy, doing things inside the black community to fix social problems, they label you as a black nationalist. But when I look at Saudi, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, which many of them who learn Salafiyya from, many of them who study Islam in their universities or from their scholars, Saudi Arabia takes part with the Arab League, right? And the Arab League deals with all the social issues of the Arab nations and even the African nations who's part of the Arab League. But they deal with economical issues. They deal with poverty. They deal with social problems, health problems. When I learned Arabic in Egypt, I learned Arabic from Kitab al-Asasi, right? And Kitab al-Asasi teach you Arabic. You learn about the Arab social problems and what the Arab government did, including Saudi government, to improve the life of the Arab Muslims and Christians and Jews. Because, you know, you have Arab Christians and Jews in the Muslim countries, in the Arab Muslim countries. But the neo-Salafi, or those who claim to follow Salafi path, that area or that genre or that section, if I talk about black social problems, they'll label me as a Ikhwani or a black nationalist, but Saudi government participates in the Arab League. We're not going to say that the Saudi government are Arab nationalists. We're not going to say that. Saudi universities also teach politics, Islamic politics, that deals with Arab social problems. But
you can't. It's almost like, and I've said this before, we're taught compartmentalized Islam. We talk about the Quran, we talk about the Sunnah, we talk about Tawheed, we talk about the books, we talk about the Hadith and the Sahaba, but never how to apply that information to poverty, to police brutality, to institutional and systemic oppression. It seems like it's almost like there's a Eurocentric or European approach to when it comes to us. There's a separation between quote unquote church and state. Islam is over here. Islam doesn't talk about black politics. Islam doesn't talk about black issues that pertain to us, things that are important to us, things that make our level of life low.
Here's a good example then. A recent incident in Philadelphia, Germantown Masjid in Philadelphia, right? Sunnah Nabawiyya, Masjid Sunnah Nabawiyya in Germantown. The Imam Hassan Somali, who is from UK, they had a shooting around the area of Germantown Masjid.
Yeah,
not one time, 2 times. One of the incidents, the imam had to save one of the victims. You see the blood on the street.
Yeah, I
But
saw that.
when you look at the social issues going on in Germantown, right there on the block of their masjid, the same Muslims who label peoples, black Muslims who talk about black social issues, when they deal with it, they label you as black nationalists. But now that violence, the things pertaining to systemic racism, the things pertaining to police brutality, the things related to black on black crime, which is due to black people not having finances and not money. Now it's in the doorstep. They don't know what to do. They don't have none of the solution. They don't know how to take the Islam and change the whole neighborhood.
Mm.
But these are the same Muslims who are going to label somebody like myself or yourself talking like this as black nationalists. But where they live, right there in Germantown, right there on the block of their masjid, it's everything pertaining to systemic racism, black social issues. They live in it, and they are victims of it themselves. I just wanted to get that out there.
The community, Islam should be transformative to the community, not just for the people that are inside the doors of the masjid. It should be transformative to the community. If all you're doing is getting out of your car and running into the masjid, running out of the masjid, jumping back in your car and driving away, you're not fulfilling your obligation. You have to get in the hood and help deal with these issues. Now, one thing that I will say, we went through a serious period of time where, like we both agree, these issues have not even been discussed. And if you did bring them up, I found Salafiyah in the 90s, so I came up in that era when it was sweet for a while. It was sweet. And then it went bonkers, man. It went crazy. Now we're having more African-American graduates who are conscious of the situation, and I really feel like they're putting forth effort to sort of address some of these issues. You mentioned the brother Muhammad Munir. I believe he has a counseling service. I could have sworn that I've seen a counseling service.
I've seen him on his website. I've seen it, yes.
So he has a counseling service. I've heard lectures from Imam Muslim Family Center. I've heard lectures and seen actually some of the work that Sheikh Tahir is doing in his community.
And their center also has a free healthcare clinic.
I don't know where it's at right now, and I really can't get into it, but people can say what they want. Sheikh Tahir is getting down. Sheikh Tahir is making changes in his community. He's not just getting on the minbar and talking and then, all right, so they come and going back to the big house. You know what I mean?
That's right.
He's putting in some work, and some of the lectures that he does helps to change, or it gives people the tools that they need to sort of change their reality, as well as access to resources. You know what I mean? For those brothers that are in Philly, you know better than I the resources that Sheikh Tahir and his whole, all of his affiliates are trying to do. I really can't talk on it too much for other reasons, but the point is that you have brothers who are trying to put in work, whereas before we were just hung out to dry as a collective. So in that regard, I have a bit of optimism that eventually, although the change may be minuscule, it may be very small, but
it's coming,
and it's going to snowball eventually,
inshallah,
if they stay consistent, if the people join in and help and not just stand back and criticize.
That's right.
Because you're always going to have haters. You're always going to have haters. You know what I mean? That will look for any small reason to bring you down, to stop, not looking at the big picture, not looking at the big picture of the good that you're doing or that's being done in the community. For many times, I don't even think that's factored into the criticism that is, leveled on these brothers.
So this be the next great question, because you just opened for the next question. How do African American Muslim communities reverse the effect of racism, the systemic racism? Since we're talking about how the brothers are doing things, how can we collectively reverse the effects of systemic racism?
That's the $1 million question.
Yeah, man, that's the real thing. The real thing.
Yeah, there's stuff I want to say that I won't say. I have to play nice.
And if you see people, I see all the comments now coming in. I love that question too. I see comments coming in, and everybody will know that answer. How can African American?
Okay, what we have to understand about America, right? Regardless of what does America love more than oppressing people? What do they love more than that? There you go. Money. So when you look at other marginalized and periphery groups that are smaller than us, but have economic power, they have the ability to buy change. They have the ability to collectively boycott and basically destroy somebody if they want. I mean, look at like the Me Too movement. Man, they were bringing whole buildings down around people's ears. They were knocking men off left and right, just on accusation. In Islam, it don't work like that. You can't just accuse somebody and then, you get the hudud. It don't work like that. There's got to be, you know what I'm saying? But my point is, for African Americans, we have to change our economic situation. I watched a video of a TED Talk, and I can send it to you. And the woman was an African American woman who was giving the lecture on the stage. And I can't give you the specific times, but I'll give you like a roundabout. She said that the dollar stays in the Jewish community, it was like 19 or 20 days. The dollar stays in the Asian community, it was like almost 30 days, rotating, circulating, everybody getting the benefit of it, putting their hands on it, mom and pop shops, restaurants, stores, doing whatever. That money was staying amongst them. I can't remember what she said about the Hispanic community, but for the African American community, the dollar stayed in the African American community like minutes or like, I mean, just some crazy amount of time that was so small and so short. That means that we don't spend our money or try to keep our money within our people. Does that make sense? We give our economic power to everybody else. The conversation that I had today with this person at my job, she said that even like black hair care places, right? Black people can open up hair salons, but they don't own the distribution spots. That's owned by the Asians.
That's right.
Asians got that on lock. The distribute, they'll let you open up a hair salon and sell you. But the distribution, that's them. They got that. We have to change how we understand money. We have to change how we spend money. And we have to find ways to become economically and financially literate and understand how money works. And then figure out a way to empower our own communities. I mean, look at the Asian community. Look at the Hispanic community. Look at the other communities that have, minority ethnic groups. They don't have the same economic situations that we do. And they tend to economically support each other, support their businesses, and they bring economic life to their community. Because I tell you what, no matter how much a politician may dislike you, if you have the economic power to cause him trouble or to benefit him,
you beat it. Be at your door knocking.
Oh yeah. And see, the thing is that with that, you'll begin to get what you need for your community.
You know what? I think the biggest in New York City, one of the biggest opponents against Muslims was former mayor Bloomberg. Bloomberg is a billionaire. But I met Bloomberg. You know where I met Bloomberg at? I met Bloomberg at It's a Lot for the Bangladeshi. It's a Lot. Bloomberg, not once, maybe like 2 times, because even though he don't like Muslims, he understood that these Southeast Asians, how they vote as a block, they vote, and they have economics and they have power. I met Bloomberg a few times right here. I'm like, and this same guy, he's not for Muslims. He said out his own mouth after 9/11. That's when he became mayor sometime after that, after Giuliani, but he was against Muslims. After 9/11, he's one initiated with Giuliani for Muslims stop vending on the streets. A lot of Muslims used to vend on the streets without a license or easy way to get a license. After 9/11, they cut it out. Bloomberg was one of the people who helped cut it out, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I hear you. If we definitely had the money or the finances, and our finances were together and united, we definitely able to do things. But there's an issue. No one in the African American Muslim community is talking about economics or Islamic economics, how to bring our finances together. Only thing that we're talking about is the symptoms of not having economics. So, for example, the most common thing you hear in African American Muslim community, my husband, why the brothers don't have no job? Why the brothers can't take care of his family? Then they turn around, these brothers always married and divorced. But, they're getting divorced because they're fighting over money in the house. As one of the sisters who's a therapist said on my show, the number one thing that causes marital discord is financial issues. So if we know that the Black community has been affected by systemic racism, redlining, taking Black people out of work or out the workforce, right? Then
prison to school, from school to prison pipeline.
And I definitely have experience with that. And even now, I'm 44 years old. I have a felony. I've been to prison. Till today, my felony, when I was 18 years old, I'm 44. That stuff still follows me today when I go look for a legitimate job. Alhamdulillah, I've been on the job market for a long time. Alhamdulillah, I always work for myself, right? So it affects people. To this day, people are still affected by this systemic racism. So in the African American Muslim community, that goes into the next question then, right? Because the next question, I think, is the answer for what you were speaking about is, how does the African American Muslim from the educated community use their education and talents and help the Black community?
First, I think there has to be some recognizing going on. When I was in Western academia and I would sit in the classes that I would sit in, I wasn't some, how do they say it? Bright-eyed, bushy-tailed. I wasn't bright-eyed and bushy-tailed 18-year-old that was just listening and digesting everything that was told to me. By the time I had gone to college, my second time, I'd had some global experience. I had some maturity. I had the ability to sort of weigh information. You know what I mean? And I had to come to the realization, the epiphany hit me that everything that's being taught to me is, number one, isn't necessarily correct. And it definitely is not necessarily in my best interest as a person of color.
Correct.
I knew that they were filtering all this information through a Eurocentric lens. And I think that those of us who are Muslim need to begin to filter whatever our area of expertise is through that Islamic lens, and then figure out application based on where you are at. And I've said this before. There was a movement a meeting, not a movement, but a meeting, I think it was 1977 in Mecca, Saudi Arabia, where scholars of Islam and academic scholars came together in Mecca at a conference, and they determined that that the Muslims are being dominated by Eurocentricity and Western ideologies, and that they decided that there needs to be a revision of the thought process, the curriculum, and how Muslims are taught, that we need to have what's called an integrated curriculum in our schools. And that integrated curriculum needs to speak to Islamic worldview, ethics, moral compass, obviously the source being the Quran and the Sunnah. These things need to be incorporated into all of the classes, not just the Islamic classes and the Arabic classes. The Islamic worldview, the ethical system, all these things need to be incorporated into math, into science, into English, into social studies, to create a competent, balanced Muslim that when he goes out into the world, his base of operation is Islam. That's his base of operation, because now we're taught a separation of church and state, which is again a European model. There's a separation between church, religion is over here, everything else is over here. We don't mix the two. We don't have this concept in Islam. In Islam, Islam is a part of all of the aspects of the human existence, right? So I think that the educated Muslims first need to figure out how to incorporate the Islamic perspective, the Islamic understanding, that knowledge into their area of expertise to be able to then help communities that they live in. So the person who has knowledge of economics, well, he needs to know halal and haram of economics.
That's right.
So that he can begin to help communities. The person who has knowledge of, a person is an engineer or an architect or an accountant or whatever, he needs to figure out how to infuse and incorporate Islam into that. I mean, name me one part of the community. When we look at the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when we read the hadith or we read the surah, where did he not use Islam? Where did he not give us guidance on whatever the topic was that he said Islam don't have nothing to do with this?
You can't find
it.
Can't find.
But somehow, some way, we have separated Islam from our everyday life. And Islam is not the basis for how we move and shake every day. We go to the masjid, and then we'll go out into the world and do what everyone else is doing. So I think that the educated need to first have a moment of realization and figure out how to apply Islam to their area of study, their area of expertise, figure out that, and then go out and apply it in the community. My area of study that I'm working on now is curriculum and leadership, right? But that curriculum and leadership is, again, it's based on Islam. It's not based on Aristotle. It's not based on Ronald Reagan's trickle-down economics. It's not, I'm coming from Islam and trying to figure out how to apply these principles into curriculum and leadership.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a great, because some of our, I think one of the things I have noticed with the educated community and the Muslim community, and African American Muslim community, is that they separate their education from the Islam, right? So
Mm-hmm.
what I mean by that, for example, a person, he might go to work, or he's educated and he works in his field. Well, inside his field, for example, he must deal with the immorality, right? Some immorality, whatever it is, something that's haram or not permissible, some concept. He must deal with it, and it's part of his field. But
Right, right.
when he's in the masjid, is just Islam, Quran, and Sunnah to his perspective, right? Or sometimes what I do see is when his education conflicts Islam altogether, right? Like I give you an example. I was working in the masjid here in Queens, and this Canadian medical student came in. He was doing some internship in a local hospital, right, or someplace, because the hospital in that area was bad. I don't know why he's doing an internship there, but he asked me something from his perspective, right? It's I think about disbelievers and non-Muslims and this and this and that. And I was like, listen, man, whatever you learned in college, whatever the concepts you got, you can't come with those concepts you learned in school and read the Quran with these concepts. It's not gonna. You can't apply it there, right? So how? Because I noticed that some of the Muslims who are educated, they don't have time to learn Islam. Unfortunately, they don't have time to learn it, or they practice Islam like the deen stuff is like leisure, a novelty, for fun, voluntarily, and
When I
it's
have
not
time.
when I have time. It's not how I get my pay. So I look at the deen like somebody look at it a hobby or a sport. It's not my means to making money, so I don't give it that much effort.
Dunya over deen.
Dunya over deen. We have that in the educated. Some people in the educated community, not all of them, but I see that aspect there.
But I will say this too. There is many times some of the most arrogant people that I've met are those that have PhDs, those that have acronyms and letters behind their names. They can be some of the most arrogant, So if you have a Muslim who falls into that trap, I'm better than you because I have a master's degree, or I'm a higher class than you. They fall into that Eurocentric mind of thinking and not filter through that Islamic lens. It don't matter what your degree is in. You're no better than the next person. Yom Qiyamah, Allah's not going to ask me about my PhD. My PhD ain't going to have nothing to do with it.
It might be the reason a person go to hell, actually.
It
might be the reason go to hell.
So again, the Muslim needs to first filter through the Islamic lens. Now, to give people something to read on their own, Google IOE and IOK, which is the Islamization of education and the Islamization of knowledge. There is a plethora. I mean, I have a stack of that I pull off of the internet, and I read all of these. This one is the rationale for the Islamization of knowledge. Now, when we say knowledge, it's not talking about Islamic knowledge. You don't need to Islamize Islamic knowledge, but we're talking about secular knowledge, revising the concept of an integrated curriculum and its implications on contemporary Islamic schools. I have an interview that I have to do with a principal tomorrow for my dissertation in reference to this right here. And it's going to be, how does Islamic worldview build integrity? The sacralization of the social sciences, a critique of an emerging theme in academic discourse. This is all filtering through an Islamic lens. The Islamization and the vision of the International Islamic University. Analysis of holistic integrated curriculum on contemporary models of higher education institutions in Malaysia. So again, integrated means Islam, the moral view, the ethics, the values, the moral compass, the principles integrated into the curriculum. It makes it the basis of the education. So I asked this question once before, and I'm not going to but I got the science and the Islamization of knowledge. I got a whole stack of these that I'm going to read eventually, inshallah. But I asked this question before, that if you take Allah, extract him from any endeavor, anything, what do you have left? I asked you this question the last time we talked. You remember? If you extract Allah from anything, any concept, ideology, anything you're doing, what do you have left?
Nothing beneficial.
You have nothing beneficial. So when you have a curriculum that Allah is absent from, the principles of Islam are absent from it, what is it producing?
Let me play devil advocate then, because you have these people. I gotta play devil advocate. We have people think like this. Well, what about the people who say religion? When we see religion being pushed in other fields, like in the U.S., we see religion in the law. That's when you start getting oppression of certain group of peoples because they don't fit in that religious category or that religious sect. For example, in American history, when they was killing witches and stuff, or European history, when people went to science and mathematics, they considered them to be witch and wizards. So some people might say, being a devil advocate here, we have Muslims who think like this. Well, if we put Islam into everything, are we going to start to oppress everybody who doesn't follow our faith or believe like we believe?
Okay.
What's your answer to that?
My answer to that is Islam does not oppress. Islam does not oppress. Islam gives everyone their due rights. Islam doesn't necessarily give everyone what we perceive or understand to be equal rights, but it gives you what Allah says you're supposed to have, right? So, if Islam is applied properly, you're going to have a just society. Look at the society that we have right now that is void of the Creator.
America.
Look at what we have right now.
UK.
How many mass shootings have we had this year alone? It's been over 200, and I didn't know that until somebody said it. There's been over 200 mass shootings this year. I was just listening to the news when I was riding in my car one day, and they are trying to implement something where they take little kids to a gay strip club to introduce them. Yeah, it was something. And just today, they said that the president is threatening to pull all funding for hot school lunches for kids unless the schools adopt some LGBTQ plus policy. So when you extract the guidelines and the principles and the haram and the halal, when you extract it, that's what you got. That's what you get. You get all this stuff that,
Let me play devil advocate one more time.
All
then
right.
what about those peoples who are atheists and agnostic, mostly atheists? Agnostics is still atheists in Islam anyway. atheists who say, uh, okay, if we do that, uh, you know, extract religion, but there's no real proof to show God exists. And that's why we have different religions that have different beliefs, and every religion is fighting each other. What is your answer to that? The
What does
religious people are
Islam say
ones.
about that?
Mm.
What does Islam say about the people's right to choose? What does it say about, people worshiping false gods?
Mm.
You know what I mean? I mean, people are always going to be on something different. There's always going to be that segment of society that wants to do their own thing or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I mean, it's, but you have to be governed by something.
Mm.
You're not a one-man island. You're going to be governed by something. We as Muslims believe that the haqq is with Islam.
That's right.
So, one of the concepts that they were pushing really hard in my sociology studies was moral relativism. Are you familiar with this term?
You explained it before, I remember. Like, your truth is your truth, his truth is his truth, and no one refute each other.
Yeah, you can't judge me. I want to marry my dog. I want to marry my sister. I want to marry my mother. That's my truth. In my truth, I can do that. You can't say anything to me about that. You can do whatever you want to do. Truth and morality is relative and subjective to the individual, right? When you extract the creator and those guidelines that he gave us, this is what you get. Now think about the trajectory that America's going on, the trajectory that the world is going on with this moral relativism, where there are no boundaries, there are no guidelines. The scale is sliding, more and more and more and more. If you look at back in 1950s or 1940s, if you asked them in 1940, do you think there'll ever be a time that two men could get married? They would look at you back then like you were crazy.
That's right.
What? Nah, but now it's the norm. So the moral compass is warped. Imagine what it's going to be for your children's children. Imagine what they're going to have to deal with. Imagine what their children are going to have to deal with.
You know what I honestly feel? This is my personal opinion. In America, I honestly believe and feel that just by looking at Trump supporter, Donald Trump, I'm not for Donald Trump, right? But what I see from the people who follow Donald Trump, I think in a few years, you're going to be like some type of civil war in America, because you have some peoples, white peoples, black peoples, Christians, Muslims, people, who don't support none of that stuff. They're not for none of that. They're against what Biden pushing at LGBTQI. There's many people who's against this agenda. White people, some of them are racist, some of them are not racist. Black people, Muslim, Christian.
I very well could see something like that happening. I can see that one scenario. The other scenario is if you look at the history of just about every great civilization, big, powerful military, blah, blah, blah. How did they fall?
By some moral, they had no morals or something like that.
Internal rot.
Internally.
They died from the inside out. It was not an external force necessarily that just came and crushed them. It was that internal rot. Like
Rome. I believe that happened to Rome.
Yeah. And ultimately, we as Muslims, we believe when Allah says enough is enough, that's it.
Because we there, bro. I mean, America, I think COVID was to slow it down. COVID was to slow it down a little bit. But these people here, and they're not learning the lesson from COVID. And
the people of Lut didn't learn their lesson. What happened to them?
Allah destroyed them.
Allah says in the Quran that there were societies that we don't even know about. Ain't nothing left of them. He smashed them.
That's right. And we talk about Lut. When you talk about loot, and it's for some of the Muslims, because you have a segment of Muslims who are pushing that LBGQTI stuff, right? So that's for them who are listening. When Allah destroyed the people of Lut, the Qawm Lut, Allah destroyed them, and He also destroyed Lut's wife. She wasn't gay, she wasn't homosexual, but she supported them, and Allah destroyed her along with them. That's what other Muslims are trying to push that LBGQTI stuff, especially Yaqeen Institute and some other places I see pushing it, right? They gotta remember, man, when Allah going to send His punishment, if you like, yo, man, I ain't got nothing wrong with that, and I hear Muslims pushing that, but at the same time, I hear Muslims today pushing white ring politics. That's another whole story.
Everything for us as a Muslim should be filtered through the Islamic lens. If it's filtered through the Islamic lens, then your basis is correct. If you're delving into issues and politics and all these different, and your frame of reference is not Islam, you're in trouble.
Then some Muslims are saying the reason why we shouldn't get involved in social issues is because of this stuff. The politics are all messed up. The people have no morals. You have a lot of African American Muslims who say they don't push black people's issues because the non-Muslims involved in a lot of this stuff, they're kuffar, they're disbelievers, they're homosexuals, all this type of unmoral stuff. So some of them say that some of them use as an excuse not to fix black people's social issues. So what you got to answer about that?
The Muslim, you can't be non-existent as a Muslim, especially when you have some level of training and some level of knowledge. You can't be non-existent in speaking on or trying to aid in the rectification of the society. You understand what I mean? If you are upon what's correct, meaning you're upon Tawheed, you fear Allah, the Quran and the Sunnah, but there's all kinds of problems in the society and you keep your mouth shut, you run the risk of being punished.
That's right.
Because you didn't help. Allah blessed you with some level of knowledge and you did nothing with it. The narration when the city was going to be destroyed and the angels went to Allah and said, hey, there's a Muslim there, who prays, he does, Allah said, take him out first. Because although he's there and he's doing what he's doing, he's not calling the people. So the Muslim voice has to be heard, because what we have to understand is we don't guide. Allah guides. But what we have to do is make the information heard. We have to make the information heard. Once we do that, the rest is to Allah. It's not for us to, we don't guide, we don't make Muslims, Allah does.
That's right.
But we have to use what we have, henceforth, conversations like this. Who knows who's going to hear this conversation or where this video is going to go? Who knows, around the world, who knows? Who knows who it may inspire? You know what I mean?
That's true.
One thing that I would impress upon the Muslim is to become educated secularly and Islamically. Don't sit on the sideline. There was a period of time that the Muslim, especially the African American Muslim, we were told that education is, you can't go to school because there's all kinds, there's free mixing, there's this, there's that, you can't go to school. You cannot become educated.
And some of the people who were saying that had college degrees on top of it. Some of the brothers who was preaching that had college degrees.
Yeah. But see, we live in an era now that, okay, that's cool. Don't go to the classroom, but you can go online. You can get a degree online. You can sit in the comfort of your house and do. So educate yourself. Become credentialed. That's one of the ways that you can change the economic situation of not only yourself, but of your community. You can create generational wealth. There's so much benefit that comes from that. Become educated now. And when I say become credentialed, like I mentioned before, and I have to say it because, you know, college is not for everybody, and that's not wrong. But if you're going to be a plumber, become a master plumber. If you're going to become an electrician, become a master electrician. Become certified.
Get your licenses for these things.
Yes, because, you know, when the city is going to do a project, right? And they're going to put the they're going to figure out who they're going to give the contract to. You can be the best hood electrician in the world, but if you aren't credentialed,
you ain't getting that job.
You ain't getting that job.
Definitely not
That's just what it is. You could be the best hood mechanic in the world, but Ford may not hire you, or whoever may not hire you, or they may hire somebody far less experienced than you, but they have a certification.
That's right.
You understand what I'm saying? So we tend to live in a credential-based world. It's going that way. You know, many times, you know, when I was in Egypt, the only thing I had with me was a TEFL certification. You know, the TEFL, teaching English as a foreign language?
Yeah, I got one too.
Yeah. So, you know, I used it to teach English, and I used that to facilitate my ability to pay my teachers and study while I was in Egypt. And when all of the revolution and all that stuff started to happen in Egypt, I was there during the middle of that. I began to look at other countries to see, hey, if I need to bounce, where can I go? And every other country that I looked at, bachelor's degree. What's your degree? Do you have a degree?
Masters. Some of them want masters.
Yep.
Some don't want no bachelor, want masters.
Yeah. So, you know, like it or not, the world is more credentials based. They want you to have credentials. So I tell the Muslim, become educated in something. Have a certification in something. It changes your economic situation. It changes your social capital. It changes your cultural capital. It polishes you. It gives you more.
You know, I want to add it in there. Even in the Muslim world, especially the Arab world, if you're coming from a Western country like America and they see you and you have no qualifications, the first thing they start saying in their head, what's wrong with you? Something got to be wrong with you. Something's wrong with you. Your country has so much technology and opportunities, and you don't have a degree or you don't have no qualification. You're going to say something's wrong with you. And that's going to also step into the next side. But brothers who want to study Deen, Islam, why you need to go to Islamic universities to study religion. Because at the end of the day, you're gonna knock out two things. You're going to get the Al-Ilm Nafiya, and then you're going to get your dunya. Your dunya is the degree. Because I know a lot of brothers right now, including myself, don't have a degree. I can't get a job in the masjid. Then I got to compete with the brothers with degrees who come from Islamic university. So it's best you're going to study Deen, also get qualified. You know? Yeah. Some sheikh told me this, and I didn't take his advice. Many years ago, I had some sheikh right from Medina. He told me, don't go to Egypt. If you don't go to Azhar, don't go to Egypt. Go to Saudi. Go to university. I didn't take his advice. You know, unfortunately, right? But there's other means and mediums to do things. So he gave me other ways to do what I need to do, right? Because he got his degree from Medina, his bachelor, and he went to NYU and got his degree something in politics, right? Or law. Because he says in the law faculties in America, they need Muslims in it who understand Islamic law, because they have a lot of the people, lawyers representing Muslims in cases, and they ask questions. They need to understand Islamic law, Muslims thinking, fiqh. So they need people like you even to work in American law. You know? Even I have a lawyer. I'm in family court right now. I have a lawyer. He texted me like last month. He said, what is the Islamic ruling on vaccines? He says, not for your case. I have another client. And I told him, I gave him some fatwa. And I told him why some Muslims would be against it, what Islam say, what scholars say, what's different opinions. And I said, if that family who's Muslim, one of the family members say maybe it's toxic, something is toxic, he has a legit. If he doesn't have a legit and the other parent one, I gave him different rulings, right? But that makes sense to me. Even lawyers, law faculties, they need people to understand Islamic law and Muslims, because Islamic law is also explaining how the Muslim think and practice.
Right.
But I wanna get something for the guests, something for you, right? And for the people who are following me. Anybody who's listening to this video, if you want to keep up with the brother, Ustad Malik Muhammad, he definitely has a YouTube channel. And if you go to the description of this video, right? Because I can't see and I need my glasses. I put in the description of this video his YouTube channel. And if you click on his YouTube channel and the bottom of the description, by clicking on it, it will take you to the link for his YouTube channel, and you can subscribe that way. Actually, it's the link for subscribing. So all you got to do is click on the link of his video. The brother updates his YouTube channel all the time. He gives a lot of his talks already here, with things he talk about. He also talks about that and plus more on his channel. And, I'm really trying to promote the brother because a lot of Muslims do, have a lot of questions about education, Islamic education, Islamic finances, and your expertise in sociology also it deals with a lot of the issues that a lot of African Americans we face. I think that we need to have more discussions like this. But, I like the idea when you say that the Muslim scholars and the people who have the academic knowledge, they need to come together, so we can talk about and address our issues, because the Muslim world does this. I mean, you traveled, I traveled, the Muslim world does this. And we're going to have to do this, in our community. So I hope this type of talks and videos will promote those ideas for those in the community, But I'm going to close out. You have any closing statements, or you want to finish something off? Yes.
Real quick, and I didn't get into it at all, but when we talked about African American identity, I would implore everyone to look into what's called negrescence. Negrescence was founded. The theory of negrescence was founded by William Cross. And he talks about in negrescence the development of African American identity, the stages. There's 5 stages that you go through in negrescence. I always want to leave people with something to go look up, to go read. I don't want to just talk and then, okay, everybody have a good day and that's it. Read up on negrescence. Look up William Cross. Look at the African American, or how the African American identity, the phases that it goes through. Now, negrescence can also be applied to the Islamic or the Black Muslim identity, not calling it negrescence, but the model, because we go through stages. So that's something that I'm actually reading on when I get the opportunity. Look into negrescence. Also, look up the IOE and the IOK, the Islamization of education and the Islamization of knowledge. Now, you will find some things that are great in it, and you'll find some things that you can tell are written by some people that you don't want to take dean from. So, you have to learn how to sift through some of that information and take the good and leave the rest and apply it where it needs to be applied. So IOE, IOK, and negrescence. That's it.
If anybody, because no one, I know I never give any questions. I never ask people, anybody have any questions?
I can't see anything. I can't even see if there's anyone here. I see hi from Honduras.
There's a few people here. Yeah. On Facebook, most of them on Facebook, because I didn't put the live yet on YouTube. I'm gonna do it later on tonight. I wanted to hit across Facebook, but I do see a few people here. And I want to ask any brother or sister that have any questions. They can say, if you're on Facebook and you just write in a comment, because I'm using a streaming service, I could definitely see your questions, because I see somebody made some statements.
Are they asking questions in the chat?
No, because I was looking. Let me see. I'm gonna look. because I don't see because there's a private chat here, and then I can see the conversations on Facebook. Nah, no questions. All right, as I am, there's no questions. All right, so inshallah, man, we get to do this again. I definitely have some more questions because I want to get into the
Eugenics.
Yeah, eugenics.
Eugenics.
Yeah, man. I heard something today. I was listening where they were saying that the world is overpopulated, especially like in Africa or POCs, right? And they want to downsize the population, right? And it's saying that because the population is too big, like in Africa, India, and these countries, is causing uh, less resources because overpopulated and they have no food to eat. So they want to downsize the population, like in Africa.
That's called Malthusian theory. Malthusian theory. It comes from, I want to say his name is Thomas Malthus. And we can save that for, I can explain that in another video, but his name is, it's called the Malthusian theory, and it's a real thing, and it is being, how do I want to say it? Okay.
Being pushed by Bill Gates. I see Bill Gates pushing that.
Well, I'll say this, and then we can go ahead and go. When the powers that be want to introduce something into the society, they want to desensitize people to something. How do they do it? How?
I don't know.
Entertainment.
Oh, entertainment. Okay.
So if they can get you entertained by concepts, when they actually employ these concepts, you're like, man, I saw that in the movie. That's live. Oh, that's cool. That's just like in the movie. That's like I said, we'll say that for another video, but it's called Malthusian theory.
Like 9/11. It was a movie. It was a movie before 9/11 happened, where they said, "Yo, let's blow this thing up and blame it on the Muslims." I was thinking this movie back in the 90s, man. And when 9/11 happened, people was referencing that movie, like, "Oh, they was talking about this a long time ago."
I'll break some stuff down to you. Next time we do this. Remind me to talk about Malthusian theory and entertainment and movies and all that stuff, because yeah, it's real.
Somebody said Fahrenheit 9/11. No. Fahrenheit 9/11 is a documentary. I'm talking about way before 9/11 happened.
Fahrenheit 9/11 is a book.
Yeah.
Fahrenheit 9/11 came out long time before that movie.
Oh, that's the movie. Oh, that's the book he's talking about.
Yep.
But there's a movie. Remember that movie that came out? Samuel L. Jackson's in that movie, and it's like, yo, we're gonna blow it up and blame it on the Muslims.
Yeah, I remember that. But Fahrenheit 9/11 is an actual book that came out like back in the day. Fahrenheit 9/11. Yeah, that's actually a book.
Okay, he said the brother's saying something else. All right, man, let's break out. We're gonna leave it on that topic right there, so people think, next time, leave it on there. Yeah, the brother saying in the comment, he's talking about they made it into a movie also. Okay.
But yeah,
yeah, man, we gonna leave it. All right, Aki, man, man, people and it's like when they put it in the movies and it happened, it's like you're already prepared for it. So when it happens for real, it's like I already seen this before, It don't move you too much, Yeah, don't move me too much.
Next time, come up with some questions for that, and I'll do my best to answer. Like I said, I studied that a while back, and I was like, when you study something, okay, look, real quick. It's just like when you read in the books, you read the books of Hadith, and you read about all these crazy groups that are out there in the world. In America, you don't really see those. But when you go overseas and you see people praying at the graves and you see people with all these crazy, you're like, oh, I read on them. Oh, that's who they are. Okay, they're real. Same thing. Some of the concepts and theories that I've read from sociology, and then when I see it in a movie, I'm like, oh, I know what that is. I know what they're doing right there. I know exactly what they're doing. So it's the same thing for me. It's the same thing.
Jazakallahu khair, and for all the guests, please like and share this video, because I said Facebook does not promote my stuff, my lives. It put it down in the feed. If you like it and share it, it helps spread and promote the video. And inshallah, man, anybody have any questions, you can always send it to my inbox or in the message. And just click on the subscription of the brother's YouTube channel so you could follow up on him by his uploads.
Yeah, inshallah. Like and subscribe and all that good stuff.
Inshallah. Assalamu alaikum, everybody.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.